Bill Longley first saw the light of day along the banks of Mill Creek in Austin County, Texas. He was the sixth child in a brood of 10, born to Campbell and Sarah Longley. However, at the tender age of 2, his family relocated, taking up residence on a farm near Old Evergreen, Texas, nestled in the area that is now known as Lincoln, Lee County, Texas. It was here that he spent the formative years of his childhood, honing his marksmanship skills amidst the backdrop of rural life. Despite the challenges of the era, Longley managed to obtain a modest education. With a towering height of 6 feet and a slight frame, complemented by his raven-black hair, he was on the cusp of adulthood as the American Civil War drew to a close in 1865. The year 1867 brought about a significant shift in the Texan landscape, as the Reconstruction Act firmly placed the state under Union control. This period saw the military assuming various roles, even those of law enforcement, a development that bred substantial discontent throughout the region. Around this juncture, Longley chose to forego his schooling and embarked on a tumultuous path. His days were now filled with revelry, as he indulged in a carefree existence, characterized by drinking and fraternizing with those who shared his audacious inclinations. During 1867, the Longley family farm found itself positioned a mere mile from the Camino Real, an ancient Spanish royal highway connecting San Antonio and Nacogdoches, Texas. As the middle of December arrived in 1868, a trio of former slaves, namely Green Evans, Pryor Evans, and an individual known only as Ned, rode through Evergreen. Their apparent intention was to visit acquaintances situated further to the south. Bill Longley, accompanied by a couple of companions, wielded firearms to compel the 3 men into a dry creek bed. A surge of panic led Green Evans to spur his horse into an escape attempt. Longley unleashed a series of shots, tragically ending Green Evans' life. Longley and his associates proceeded to rifle through the deceased man's pockets while Pryor Evans and Ned made their departure. Although Longley was primarily implicated in the murder, he later contended that he wasn't the sole perpetrator. This account of the incident stands in contrast to his later confessions, wherein he exhibited a greater propensity for boasting about his shooting exploits rather than deflecting blame onto others. Some versions of this event allege that Green Evans was a member of the Texas State Police. However, it's important to note that the Texas State Police existed only between 1870 and 1873. Subsequently, Longley meandered through the expanse of Texas, his path often intersecting with saloons where he engaged in gambling. It was within these settings that he became acquainted with the renowned gambler, Phil Coe. The year 1869 saw Longley and his brother-in-law, John Wilson, embarking on a spree of criminal activities across southern Texas. Their joint endeavors encompassed robbing settlers and, in a grim instance, taking the life of a freed slave named Paul Bryce in Bastrop County, Texas, before absconding with his horses. Reports also suggest that they were responsible for the demise of a freed slave woman in Evergreen. By March 1870, a reward of $1,000 was posted by the Union Military Authority for the apprehension of Longley and Wilson. Longley later asserted that Wilson fell victim to outlaws in 1870 in Brazos County, Texas. However, contradictory evidence hints at Wilson's actual demise occurring in 1874, situated in Falls County, Texas. Evading the grasp of authorities, Longley departed from his Texan roots, journeying northward in an attempt to elude capture. By the time May of 1870 rolled around, his path led him to Cheyenne, Wyoming, where he joined the ranks of a prospecting party, fueled by the allure of gold. This group of gold seekers ventured into the rugged expanse of the Black Hills in South Dakota. However, their ambitions were thwarted by a treaty with the Sioux that prohibited mining activities. The party's endeavors came to an abrupt end when they found themselves intercepted by a contingent of U.S. cavalry. On the pivotal date of June 22, 1870, Longley made the decision to enlist in the Army, committing to a 5-year service with Company B of the U.S. 2nd Cavalry Regiment. Stationed at Camp Stambaugh, his time there was short-lived, as he found himself ill-suited to the stringent military lifestyle. Just 2 weeks into his enlistment, he deserted. His flight from military duty was short-lived, however, as he was soon apprehended and subsequently subjected to a court-martial. The verdict rendered a sentence of 2 years of arduous labor, shackled to a ball and chain, while confined within the confines of Camp Stambaugh. He endured this imprisonment for 4 months before being released to rejoin his unit. His exceptional prowess in marksmanship caught the attention of his superiors, leading to his assignment to regular hunting parties that frequently departed from the post. However, the allure of escape beckoned once more, prompting Longley to desert anew in the month of May in 1872. Longley's movements throughout the remainder of 1872 remained shrouded in mystery. However, by the time February 1873 arrived, he had resurfaced in his home state of Texas, finding himself embroiled in an accusation of slaying yet another freedman in Bastrop County. In the aftermath of this incident, he sought refuge once again with his father's family in Bell County, Texas. During that same summer, Mason County Sheriff J. Finney apprehended Longley on a murder charge. The captive was then transported to Austin under the promise of collecting a reward. Yet, the anticipated federal military reward failed to materialize from state authorities. This led to Longley's eventual release, a transaction possibly influenced by a bribe exchanged with his uncle, Alexander Preston Longley, hailing from California. Tragedy struck anew on March 31, 1875, when Longley turned a shotgun on his childhood friend, Wilson Anderson, claiming his life. It was alleged that this act was spurred by the instigation of Longley's uncle, Caleb B. Longley. The elder Longley held Anderson accountable for the demise of his son, Cale, and goaded Bill Longley into seeking revenge. Following this incident, Longley embarked on a northward flight, his brother, James Stockton Longley, in tow. James was subsequently tried and acquitted of Anderson's murder. The ensuing manhunt propelled a fresh reward onto Longley's head. As the law enforcement net tightened, Longley navigated a tumultuous path, assuming various aliases to evade capture. A brief stint on a cotton farm provided a temporary sanctuary, but violence flared once more in November 1875, when he fatally shot his hunting companion George Thomas after a heated altercation. January 1876 marked another grim chapter as Longley's ambush attempt on fellow outlaw Lou Schroyer escalated into a deadly shootout. Although Longley managed to fell Schroyer, it was a rare instance where one of his intended victims returned fire, shooting Longley's horse from beneath him. Continuing his flight, Longley sought refuge in East Texas, adopting the role of a sharecropper under preacher William R. Lay. Yet, stability remained elusive, as Longley found himself entangled in a rivalry with Lay's nephew over the affections of a young woman. Physical violence erupted, leading to Longley's incarceration and eventual escape, with Lay bearing the brunt of his blame. On June 13, 1876, Longley rode to Lay's farm, where he encountered him milking a cow. A shotgun blast ended Lay's life, marking the final entry in the ledger of lives claimed by Longley. Subsequently, Longley's journey potentially led him to Grayson County, Texas, where his friends Jim and Dick Sanders languished in jail. He orchestrated their escape, and the trio made their getaway after disarming Deputy Matt Shelton during an attempted arrest. From there, Longley's path wound its way to Louisiana. Approximately a year later, Deputy Matt Shelton confirmed the authenticity of the encounter. On the 6th of June, 1877, Longley's chapter of evasion came to an end as he found himself encircled and apprehended without resistance by Nacogdoches County Sheriff Milt Mast and 2 accompanying deputies. This event unfolded during his stay in DeSoto Parish, Louisiana, where he had adopted the guise of Bill Jackson. Transported back to Texas, he faced trial within the jurisdiction of the Lee County Court, ultimately receiving a death sentence for the murder of Wilson Anderson. His appeal met denial in March of 1878. Then, on the 11th of October, 1878, Longley's life reached its somber culmination. He met his fate via the hangman's noose in Giddings, Texas, a mere stone's throw from his early hometown of Evergreen. The Giddings City Cemetery now cradles his remains, commemorated by a state historical marker.